You know, I think we all know what's going to determine this fight is whether or not Obi-Wan's going to get the high ground by the end of the animation. And then we can get friggin' Darth Kakashi in episode 13. Hey, what's going on, you guys? My name is The Raptor, and welcome back to another one of my Death Battle prediction videos. So by the time I record this, and I'm assuming by the time I upload this, my reaction to Cable vs. Booster Gold hasn't come out yet. I'm not sure whether or not it's going to be copyright claimed. If it is copyright claimed, though, I am going to try to dispute the claim because I've heard from multiple people that does work with Rooster Teeth. It might work, it might not work, or they might not claim it at all, I don't know. Regardless, though, it may take some time for it to be public if I do get it undisputed, but if I can't do that, then I'll still make sure to find a way for you guys to watch it, probably through a redirect. Regardless, though, in whatever form it takes, it will take probably a little bit of time, so just bear with me, and for now, we have this video to focus on. So let's get into it. The next death battle, coming after Cable vs. Booster Gold, is going to be Obi-Wan from Star Wars versus Kakashi from Naruto. Oh my god, I am so excited. If I could put this fight into one word, it's just yes, absolutely yes. This was, I think, a lot of people were thinking that this was going to be Obi-Wan's opponent after he was revealed at the end of All Might vs. Might Guy, along with all the other fighters. A lot of people were thinking it was going to be Kakashi, myself included, and a lot of people were thinking it was going to be this specific fight, like Season 7, Episode 8, because this episode is going to air on YouTube on May the 4th, which is Star Wars Day of 2020, so that's really cool too. And what's really interesting is that these are two universes that haven't had the best track record with Death Battle, at least in terms of like win-loss records. So, you know, one record's definitely going to get even worse after this, so that's going to be fun to see. But I do really like both of these franchises. In general, I think I like Star Wars more than I do Naruto, but I like Kakashi in the context of Naruto more than I do Obi-Wan in the context of Star Wars. I know there are a lot of people that like Obi-Wan. I understand that, especially after the memes. And, you know, Ewan McGregor did a great job, and Alec Guinness, you know, rest in peace, he did a great job as well. I understand why people like him, and he is powerful. I don't know, he's never really been one of my more favored Star Wars characters, like looking at the hierarchy of who I like in Star Wars. Whereas with Kakashi, I just think he's a badass. I love him so much, you know, in comparison to a lot of other Naruto characters, he's really high up there. And I don't know, like, just when I first saw him, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like this guy, and I still like him. I think he's a really cool character. I don't know, that's just me though. I understand that everyone has their own opinions, but we're going to try to put the biases aside and just move forward. So, this fight is hard. That's really the best way I can put this fight. This fight is really hard to predict for a number of reasons. One of the big reasons is because when it comes to this fight, this is a very split fight. There is really no consensus on the internet. Not just like in Death Battle predictions, but also on the internet. There's really no consensus that I found of like anyone saying, you know, oh yeah, this guy definitely wins, or this guy definitely wins, you know? This fight's really split. I see a lot of people going for Obi-Wan, a lot of people going for Kakashi, and you guys know that I'm not always one to go with the majority. You know, I've gone against the majority a number of times before. Regardless though, like, you know, Gray versus Esdeath, or even like more recently, Cable vs. Booster Gold, there are a lot of people who are on both sides, or on either side, when it comes to this fight, which makes the fight a lot more interesting to predict, but also harder to predict. Another reason why this one is weird is because both of these characters have a lot of counters for each other, and that's hard to analyze, that really is, because you might have something like Miles versus Static, where Static seems to have a lot of the counters in this fight, and he can keep up with a lot of Miles' advantages, but he also just has a lot of specific counters, you know? So it's pretty easy to see that Static would win that fight, at least for me it was. But when it comes to this fight, when I was looking at one character, I'm like, oh, this character has a lot of counters over the other one. But then when I look at the other character, I'm like, wait, this guy has counters too, and like, there's a lot of abilities that these guys have that are similar, or that, you know, just counter each other and stuff like that. So then it starts to see like, well, is it become a matter of like which counters are better, or, you know, do we look more at the base stats, etc., etc. So that's really tough to judge. And then, if that wasn't enough, we also have the thing about whether or not Death Battle is going to incorporate Legends into this. And for those of you guys that don't know, Legends is non-canon to Star Wars now, but the Legends canon, like, the characters in there are massively more powerful than they are in any sort of canon material that you'll see for the Star Wars characters, and Obi-Wan is no exception. Now, this one is really weird for me, because, like, okay, Death Battle hasn't used a Star Wars character in a very long time. The last time they used a Star Wars character was Darth Vader vs. Dr. Doom, and that came out in 2015, almost 5 years ago. And it was almost 80 episodes ago. So yeah, they haven't used a Star Wars character in a very long time. So things may have changed. But even all the way back then, when they knew that there were new movies coming out and, you know, the Legends was non-canon anymore, they still used that non-canon material from Legends, like when it comes to, like, Boba Fett vs. Samus Remastered, and Darth Vader versus Doctor Doom. So that's really interesting. It makes me inclined to say that they will use this for Obi-Wan. But then I'm thinking that, you know, they also did this thing where they explicitly said they're not going to be using Archie Sonic, you know, when talking about Sonic, because he's a much more powerful and basically a completely different character. I don't know if maybe their rules have changed now so much that they would do the same thing here, but I know that they like to analyze their characters to their maximum potential, and the fact that they already did it when new movies were still being confirmed makes me think they will do it. I will say, though, that if they are going with just canon material for Obi-Wan, I do think Kakashi would win. I think he would just be too much for him power-wise. I think it would just overpower him. But if they're not, if they're using all the material, all official material, like the Legends, then it becomes a much more interesting fight. I'm going to make the assumption that they are using it, because I think that they want to represent Obi-Wan the best, just like how they want to represent Kakashi the best. So I am going under the assumption that maybe they've confirmed otherwise, but I'm going under the assumption that they are going to be using Legends for this fight. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, and then it's also like, I'm not too familiar with Legends in general. I know that, you know, there are some people who say that, like, oh yeah, the characters in Legends are, like, faster than light, and they're like planetary level characters. And I don't really have any way to confirm or deconfirm that. That seems a little much, but again, maybe that's just common knowledge. Maybe that's totally what it is like. Regardless, though, I do have some feats from canon and non-canon Obi-Wan, so I can try to, like, pull stuff from there, you know, to try to, like, make my own judgment of it. And then Kakashi is even harder, because they're undoubtedly going to scale him to Guy in one way or another, but I don't know how far they're going to go with that. Are they going to go with, like, scaling him to Night Guy? Should they scale him that far? I'm not really sure. So when it comes to, like, power and durability and stuff like that, there's a lot of things that I think we just don't know yet, and it's hard to make assumptions for those things. So I think it's more important to look at a lot of the other things that these characters bring to the table before we start looking at, like, strength and durability and stuff like that. Let's talk about some of the things they have in common. These guys are both really intelligent tactical fighters. Now, I know that Kakashi has this reputation that he's, like, you know, the best in the Leaf, like, the Leaf's best tactical fighter, and he's insanely smart when it comes to fighting, of course. But Obi-Wan has also led a number of different armies into a number of different battles. He has his own tactical prowess as well. These characters they both know how to play a fight extremely safe, and this also goes into Obi-Wan's fighting style, but we'll get into that a little later. Regardless, though, both of these guys know how to fight extremely safe. And of course, that goes with Kakashi's fighting style as well. Didn't want to leave that out. But yeah, in terms of smarts, that's kind of where they lie. And speed is interesting, because Kakashi, they kind of already talked about Kakashi's speed in Guy versus All Might. They were talking about how, like, he was able to move over 2,000 times the speed of sound in order to intercept the lightning. Now, There is this whole debate about how fast the blasters are in Star Wars, although I'm pretty sure they're not light speed, at least when it comes to the canon material. I think it's unfair to say that they are light speed, because they're just visibly not. Regardless, though, Obi-Wan still has some good speed feats. He was able to hold his lightsaber up to ground the Force lightning shot at him by Count Dooku. But even if we want to say that lightning is the same speed as the lightning that Kakashi intercepted, I want to say that Kakashi's feat is better, because he was able to, like, you know, run and intercept the whole thing, whereas Obi-Wan more so stuck the lightsaber up. But I know that in the Legends he also has a lot of other speed feats that put him more at that kind of Kakashi level. Like, he was able to dodge a blaster from a Star Destroyer, or a starfighter, that kind of thing, which is extremely fast. And he was apparently able to, like, completely deflect with his lightsaber, completely deflect a ton of blaster bolts, like, from all at once, supposedly, you know? So it's those kind of feats that, you know, put him, like, more on the same level of Kakashi, if not even further than that. And again, the whole faster than light, I don't even want to touch on that, because I don't want to say anything I'm not sure of. Regardless, though, assuming that they are around the same in terms of speed, I don't see speed being the deciding factor here. Mainly because these guys also have stuff like precognition, they know how to, like, anticipate opponents' moves with their own abilities, and they're both extremely fast. So I feel like if it ever ever did come to, like, fast combat, neither of them would really leave an opening, you know? Like, I feel like both of them definitely can keep up with each other in terms of speed very easily with their precognition and, like, future sight. At least they have their own future sights to some degree. So I don't think speed is going to be the deciding factor here unless I'm really misunderstanding one of the characters' speed. Or speeds. I think, and again, this makes me want to go more to strength and durability, but again, I don't really want to touch on that because I don't know the kind of scaling that Death Battle is going to do. It's one thing to try to predict a Death Battle, but it's another thing to try to predict how Death Battle is going to analyze the characters, which is way harder. Regardless, I think now we should take a look at the counters that I think each of these characters have and see how they stack up against one another. One of the big things to note about Kakashi is that he has this thing where using his Sharingan, he's able to copy the techniques of a lot of different fighters. Like, he's done this for over 1,000 fighters, so he's definitely very versatile as far as fighting is concerned. However, I don't see him being able to do this easily when it comes to Obi-Wan, or really any Jedi, just because when it comes to Jedi martial arts, it involves, like, implementing the Force all the time. They use the Force basically in order to fight. That's the fighting style, you know? And, like, and same goes for the abilities, basically all of it. So, that really makes me doubt Kakashi's ability to be able to copy that, because he doesn't have a midichlorian count. He has chakra, but he's not able to use the Force. So even if he's able to see the attack happening, I can't wholeheartedly say he'd be able to copy it perfectly or really just, like, competently at all, because he doesn't have the Force to be able to copy it really to any degree, I feel, because again, like, all the martial arts fundamentally are with the Force. So that's something that I feel like could definitely catch Kakashi off guard. Another big thing is that both of these guys have ways to conceal themselves. Like, Kakashi has his own concealing methods, but then Obi-Wan can use the Force to make himself invisible. But when it comes to trying to sense each other out, Obi-Wan doesn't really have a limit to what he can sense. Like, he's able to sense all living things, so that shouldn't really be a problem for him. But Kakashi, to my understanding, can sense things or beings that are made up of chakra or possess chakra, you know, and again, that's not Obi-Wan. So I feel like that's another thing that could definitely, you know, trip Kakashi up and not really let him use his abilities to the greatest degree. And then the big thing comes in, going back to Obi-Wan's fighting style, is that he likes to play a lot more on the defensive side. Like, he mixed a bunch of different Jedi martial arts to try to get, like, the best from all worlds, so he's good. He's a really well-rounded fighter. Again, he fights smart. He trained really well in terms of defensive styles especially, but also implemented parts of, you know, like, agility and strength and everything like that. But that's the thing, he likes to wear his opponent down. He likes to make it so that he fights with as little effort as possible, and then he wears his opponent down. With Kakashi, though, thinking about his fighting style, it wouldn't be too much of a stretch for me to think that Obi-Wan would basically just be not using a lot of energy during the fight, and then he would wear Kakashi down, and Kakashi would run low on chakra. That's something that I could definitely see Obi-Wan doing, because that's basically, like, his own technique that he uses. He doesn't like to move around a lot. He likes to conserve as much energy as possible, and then go fighting when the opponent is worn down. And I could see that definitely happening if the fight goes on for a very long time. I think Kakashi is going to be drained more than Obi-Wan, and I think that Obi-Wan could outlast him as far as stamina is concerned. Also, Obi-Wan does have a pretty good healing factor. He can heal himself mid-fight with the Force. So there's definitely that too, that he has. And then also in terms of illusionary attacks, I will talk a little bit more about this later, but in terms of, like, the basic illusions, I don't really, like, again, you know, Obi-Wan can use the Force to, like, sense that out. He has a lot of mental protections. Like, he was able to resist memory wipe just when he was a Padawan, so that's really impressive as well. So the illusionary attacks, I don't think, are going to be done to the best of their abilities as well with Kakashi. And then I think it's also important to note that, like, Obi-Wan is still extremely powerful with the Force, but he generally prefers lightsaber combat, so there's definitely that. But yeah, just, like, those are the main things that I see Obi-Wan having over Kakashi, but the thing is, Kakashi has a lot of things over Obi-Wan too. One of the big things that I keep going back to is that Kakashi has a lot of attacks that can't just be countered with a lightsaber, which is something that, you know, Obi-Wan is very used to doing, of course. Like, he's able to make his shadow clones, his water clones. If he makes, like, a huge Rasengan, you know, like, Obi-Wan's not just going to be able to deflect that with a lightsaber. But then again, Obi-Wan Obi-Wan also has his Force defenses, he has his Force shields, or his Force fields, if you will, which has been able to stop, fire before, which, is still physical, but it's not, solid or anything, much like the Rasengan or the Chidori, or the, whatever the Mega Chidori is, or whatever it's called, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, that stuff, yeah, Obi-Wan still has ways to defend against that, but it's gonna be more with the Force and not with the lightsaber, which, again, is something that Obi-Wan's not really used to doing. He's more a lightsaber guy than a Force guy, so that's something that I think could overwhelm Obi-Wan as well. Another big thing that I'm wondering is whether or not Kakashi would be able to put Obi-Wan into a Genjutsu, because even if Obi-Wan can see through illusions, it might not be able to stop Kakashi from actually putting him into, an illusionary trap. So there's that. And then there's the fact that Kakashi has his Kamui, which could be a real problem for Obi-Wan if he gets a hold of his lightsaber. If he just sucks it into another dimension, then his bread and butter is basically just gone. He's stuck to using the Force. The Force is still versatile, but still, that's definitely not good for Obi-Wan. Regardless, though, Obi-Wan still has ways to make sure that he keeps himself at a distance. Like I said before, he has his shields. He has ways to push Kakashi back, again, with telekinesis or with Force push or something. He has ways to keep his distance, and with his precognition and his, future sight, he has ways to make sure that he can, anticipate when this kind of stuff is coming. Again, he's a smart fighter. But then again, Kakashi's a smart fighter too, and, he also has precognition and stuff like that. So again, this fight is really hard to judge. These characters have counters back and forth, and it's really hard to think about, how really this is going to end. Kakashi also has a certain level of reality warping when it comes to his illusions, so I mean that could definitely extend his unpredictability or maybe even his survivability. But I don't know, this fight is really hard to judge because there's so much playing on both sides, and trying to see how they interact with each other is really difficult to do. I feel like it's safe to say though that Obi-Wan has a lot more control directly over his opponent than Kakashi does. When it comes to, Force being able to mental reading, even I don't know if he'd be able to use the mind trick on him, because again, that really only works on dumb people, and Kakashi is far from a dumb person. But then there's also mind domination, which I think is just a more powerful version of that, so that might be able to work, I'm not really sure. But then also in terms of telekinesis and Force sensing and all the things he can do, giving him control over the environment as well as his opponent with basically just a thought and all of that, I feel like Kakashi doesn't really have too much to defend against that, and he also just doesn't have that much in terms that's equivalent to that it would really be comparable to something like that, as much all the stuff that the Force encompasses. How Obi-Wan's telekinesis was able to move a friggin' Star Destroyer in the Legends. So again, in the Legends, he's insanely powerful, and I feel again, being able to use the Force to sense wherever he is all the time, being able to use telekinesis on him all the time without really a counter to that Kakashi has, that really seems like it puts Kakashi in a bad position. Now, I'm not trying to sell Kakashi short. He has a lot of things. Again, listing all of his abilities would just take way too long. But I feel like if he plays his cards right, that could definitely overwhelm Obi-Wan, especially if he takes away his lightsaber. But then again, even if he does that, Obi-Wan's Force abilities are not just something you can suck into another dimension. There's not too much that Kakashi could do against that. I don't know. This one is insanely hard. Honestly, this is one of those fights where I kind of, if I was able to just say undecided, which is something I don't like to do, and something I would never do, but if I ever did that, this would definitely be an undecided one for me, because I really have no idea who's going to win this fight. This one is so difficult for me to do. I guess ultimately what I'm trying to say when it comes to Obi-Wan versus Kakashi is that Obi-Wan is probably going to be controlling the pace of the battle more often, just controlling his surroundings, controlling his opponent, being able to sense where everything is, sense where his opponent is, They both have precognition, but I feel like Obi-Wan's able to capitalize on it more, and he has abilities that, again, Kakashi can't just magic away. And then there's also the fact that I feel like, in general, which kind of relates to what I said before, I feel like Obi-Wan has not better counters, but he has better ways to keep up with Kakashi's counters, or more things that are comparable to Kakashi's counters than the other way around. I think, both of these characters could definitely overwhelm the other in one way or another, but I think just based on Obi-Wan's fighting style, and based on the abilities he uses, and the abilities that he has at his disposal, and what can be taken away from him and what can't, I feel like eventually it would just wear Kakashi down. And if what people are saying, you know, about the legends is true, then that definitely gives him a leg up as well. Again, I don't want to say that I know for sure how powerful Obi-Wan is, but people are saying that Obi-Wan is insanely powerful in the legends. So, again, this is one where I would go with undecided if I could, but I don't want to do that, and I really just got to go with my gut here. And my gut is telling me Obi-Wan. I'm going to say that Obi-Wan is going to win. If Kakashi wins, I will not be surprised in the slightest, okay? Like, if Kakashi wins, absolutely, that's great. I really like Kakashi. I just think that Obi-Wan is going to win based on the clearly limited knowledge that I have on these characters. If any of you guys want to tear me apart in the comments, absolutely go right ahead. But this was my prediction. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think, who you think's going to win. And, yep, that's it for me. I will see all of you guys in the next video. Peace out.